In the Smokies, the old ridge hunters have a rule that doesn't appear in any trail guide. Don't answer whistles after dark. One whistle might be another hiker, might be a hunter signaling his partner, might be wind through a gap in the ridgeline. The second whistle is never any of those things. The rule is simple. You hear a whistle after dark, you stay quiet. You don't whistle back. You don't call out. You don't move toward it. 5 people answered. Every one of them regretted it before sunrise. The fall of 1987, I was 31 years old, and I'd been hunting the Smokies since I was old enough to carry a rifle. I knew every hollow in my section. I knew the sounds. That November, I heard a sound I didn't know. It was the 3rd night of a solo trip. I was camped on a bench about 2 miles off the nearest trail, elevation around 400-200 feet, hardwood forest, heavy leaf litter. Around 9 p.m., I heard a whistle, single note, coming from the ridge above me, about 200 yards out. I figured another hunter, probably lost. I whistled back. 2 short notes, the standard signal in these mountains for "I'm here." The whistle came back immediately. Single note, same pitch. But it was closer, maybe 100 yards. I whistled again, listening. The woods stayed completely still. No leaves moving, no branches shifting, just the whistle getting closer. It came back in under 3 seconds. 50 yards, same ridge, moving downhill toward my camp. I stopped whistling. The whistle came again, 30 yards, not waiting for me anymore, just moving. I got out of my sleeping bag, put my boots on, picked up my rifle. The whistle came from the edge of my firelight. The darkness just past where the fire lit the trees. I held still, listening. Nothing moved in the trees, no footsteps, no branch crack, nothing. But the whistle had been right there, at the edge of camp. I'd heard it clearly. After maybe 5 minutes of silence, a whistle came from back up the ridge, 200 yards, same direction it had started from. Moving away, same pace it had come down, like it was walking back up. In the morning, I walked the ridge above camp, looking for boot prints, looking for any sign of another person. Soft ground along the top of the ridge, no prints, not from boots, not from anything. The ridge had been empty. I packed out that morning, got home before dark. I've hunted the Smokies every fall since 1987. I don't whistle back anymore. Not at night. Not once. The summer of 1979, I was 19 years old, and I'd just started my first season as a fire lookout on a tower in the Smokies. 6 weeks alone on a ridge. I thought I was ready for the isolation. I wasn't ready for the whistling. It started on the 3rd night. Around 11 p.m., a single whistle from the tree line below the tower. Low, long, like someone calling a dog. I was new. I didn't know the rule yet. I leaned out the tower window and whistled back. It came again. Closer. I whistled again, thinking it was another ranger, a hiker in trouble. It came from directly below the tower, right at the base of the platform stairs. I grabbed my flashlight, leaned over the railing, shone it down. Nothing at the base of the stairs. The catwalk was clear. The ground around the tower was empty. I went back inside, locked the door. The whistle came from inside the catwalk, right outside the locked door. The same note, same pitch. I sat in the center of the tower cabin until first light. Did not sleep. did not open the door. In the morning, the catwalk was empty. No prints on the dusty platform, no sign anyone had been up the stairs. It came back the second night. I didn't answer. The third night it came again. I still didn't answer. On the fourth night, it didn't come. I finished my 6 weeks, didn't report it, figured nobody would believe me. At the end of the season, the outgoing lookout, a man who'd worked the same tower for 11 years, told me to let him know if I heard whistling at night. I asked him what to do if I did. He told me the only right answer was nothing. He told me answering it once was too many times. In October 2003, I was 26 years old and I'd been on the county search and rescue team for 3 years. We were searching for a missing day hiker in the Smokies. Male, mid-50s, had gone off trail somewhere near a ridge system above 5,000 feet. We searched through the afternoon, lost light around 6:30. Team lead called us to hold position and wait for morning. We set up a bivouac on a flat section of trail. 6 of us, 8, checked in with base, settled in. Around 10 p.m., one of our team, a volunteer named Davis, heard a whistle from the North Ridge. He told us he thought it was the missing hiker. Our team lead said don't answer, wait for morning. Davis answered anyway. 2 short notes. The whistle came back, from the North Ridge. 1 note. Davis stood up, said he was going to check it, said the hiker might be injured. Our team lead ordered him to stay. Davis walked north into the dark. We heard him whistling for maybe 10 minutes, moving up the ridge, then nothing. We searched for Davis at first light, found him about 400 yards north of our bivouac, sitting on a rock at the edge of a steep drop, facing out over the valley. He didn't respond when we called his name, didn't move when we touched his shoulder. He came back to himself slowly. Took maybe 20 minutes before he could speak. He said he'd followed the whistle up the ridge, said it kept moving ahead of him, said he'd gotten to the rock and it had stopped. He said he didn't know how long he'd been sitting there. He had no memory of 5.5 hours. The soles of his boots were caked with creek mud. There were no creeks north of our bivouac. We found the missing hiker the next morning, half a mile south of where Davis had gone. He'd twisted an ankle and sheltered under a rock overhang. He hadn't been whistling. In 1994, I was 38 years old, and I'd been a backcountry ranger in the Smokies for 9 years. We called ourselves ridge runners back then. Long solo patrols, 3 to 5 days at a time. That September, I was on a 5-day patrol on the Tennessee side, high elevation route, not much traffic that time of year. On day 3, around 8 p.m., I heard whistling from below the ridgeline to my east. I knew the rule. I'd been told the rule on my first week in the park. I didn't answer. The whistling continued, every few minutes, moving north along the base of the ridge, parallel to my route. I kept walking, kept my headlamp on, watched the tree line to my east. Around 9 p.m., the whistling stopped. Then it came from directly ahead of me on the trail, about 60 yards out. Single note. I stopped, stood still, did not whistle back. It came again. Same spot, 60 yards ahead. The trail curved just past that point. I couldn't see around the bend. I waited. Maybe 10 minutes. Then footsteps. From around the bend, coming toward me on the trail. Steady. Unhurried. I put my hand on my radio. Didn't call it in. Waited. I kept expecting someone to step around the corner. The footsteps reached the bend in the trail, stopped. Nothing came around the corner. The footsteps had walked to the bend and stopped, but nothing appeared on the straight section of trail in front of me. After maybe 5 minutes, the footsteps walked back, the way they'd come, around the bend, moving away. Then the whistling again, from behind me now, moving south, moving back the way it had come. I stood on that trail for a long time. Then I walked to the bend, looked around it. Empty trail. No one. No boot prints on the soft earth around the curve. I camped right there. On the trail, fire going all night, did not sleep. I've done maybe 200 backcountry patrols since 1994. I follow the rule on every single one. My uncle logged the Smokies in the 1960s, before the Park Service bought out the last of the private timber rights. He was 67 years old when he told me this story. I was 24. He died the following winter. He'd been logging a cove on the Tennessee side in the fall of 1967. Crew of 8 men, old-growth timber operation. They'd been working that section for 6 weeks. On a Tuesday night in October, 2 of the crew went down to the creek to wash up after dinner. They heard whistling from across the creek, single note repeating. One of them whistled back. The one who whistled back was named Roy. He was 22 years old. The whistling across the creek came closer. Roy whistled again. The other man, my uncle, told Roy to stop. Told him the old men in that area didn't answer whistles after dark. Told him Roy shouldn't either. Roy laughed. Whistled one more time. The whistling from across the creek stopped. A sound came instead. My uncle said it sounded like someone had taken the whistle apart into its individual components. Air without tone, moving through the dark. Roy walked toward the creek. My uncle grabbed his arm. Roy shook him off, walked into the water. My uncle ran back to camp, got 2 other men. They came back with lanterns. Roy was standing in the middle of the creek, knee-deep, facing the far bank. They called his name. He didn't answer. They waded in and pulled him out. He walked back to camp with them, sat by the fire. He didn't speak for the rest of the night. In the morning, Roy wouldn't talk about what he'd seen on the far bank. He quit the logging crew that day, hitched a ride out to the highway. Nobody from the crew saw him again. My uncle said Roy had worked with them for 3 years. He was reliable, steady, not a man who spooked easily. He told me whatever Roy had seen on the far bank had emptied him out, like something had reached in and taken the most important part. He told me the rule had been in these mountains long before the loggers came in, long before anyone kept records of it. He told me some things in these hollows communicate by whistle, and the ones that whistle at night aren't looking for a conversation. They're looking for someone to answer.